I know what you're thinking. You look like a right mess, mate. And I know, I've just had a shower. I'm in prep. Give me a rest, will ya? And whether I look like a mess or not, I'm going to be teaching you 3 muscle building lessons that I've learned in the last 547 days of bulking. And now you might be asking, why 547 days? That's quite specific, because that's about 18 months. And that's how long I've been in a build phase since I got off stage in October 2023. So yeah, since then, I've pretty much been in a build phase or a bulk all the way through until about 4 or 5 weeks ago, because obviously now I'm in prep. But yeah, up until 4 or 5 weeks ago, you know, I've been shoveling in 4,000, 4,250, 4,500 calories every single day. And it is quite some chore. But across the past 18 months, I've reached my 11th year of training, and I feel like I've actually grown more significantly in the past 18 months than I have ever before. Which, you know, when I was first getting into training, I was taught that after 10 years of training, you're going to reach your natural genetic potential, which means you can't progress any further than that. I found out that that is bullshit, and I'm going to teach you 3 lessons that I've learned in the past 18 months of the past build phase. And I know you might be thinking that I might be biased, however, I am my own worst critic, just like most of us are. So I'm not really biased, to be completely honest. I'm just completely talking about the work achieved and the visuals achieved. So yeah, I guess I'll probably overlay some videos now, but I'm going to just quickly talk you through some numbers. So back in 2023, I started my prep, so I finished my bulk, or started my prep at around 84 kilos, which at the time was the heaviest that I'd ever been. And then throughout prep, I dropped about 12 kilos, which meant I was on stage around that 72 kilo mark in 2023. So even though that is relatively light, I still managed to place second in the UK at PCA British Finals and at the WNBF British Finals as well. Which again, you know, I was expecting like maybe top 5, maybe top 10. I think I was going into the PCA Finals with like top 10 would be great. So to get second, I was over the fucking moon with that. So yeah, so as I said, the past 18 months have been committed to growing, and you know, I was shoveling in a lot of food, eating food when I didn't want to eat, training when I didn't want to train, because that's what you have to do if you want to achieve your physique development goals. So after, you know, 18 months of building, I managed to reach an all-time heaviest weight of 90.2 kilos. And I'd been floating around the 90 kilo mark for probably like 6, 7, maybe even 8 weeks at the end of the bulk. And this is the thing, there was no need to continue pushing and pushing and pushing, because my training performance was improving, my body composition was getting better. Although my weight was floating around the 90 kilo mark, you know, I still felt my physique developing and progressing. So for me as well, it was a massive achievement to be able to maintain the 90 kilo body weight for, you know, a long period of time. You know, naturally as a person, you know, I've got quite an ectomorphic physique naturally. Like my body wants to be skinny, my body wants to be small and lean and nimble, because that's how I've always been growing up. One of my goals in this build phase was to actually get to the point where I don't have abs anymore, because I've always had abs. You know, I'm one of those like little skinny athletic kids basically. So for me to get to 90 kilos and sustain that was a great achievement. So basically, yeah, I have started this prep 6 kilos heavier than my previous prep. So hopefully there's been a little bit of muscle growth in there. So I was definitely a bit fatter, obviously, at the start of this prep compared to the previous prep. So I've obviously put on a bit of extra body fat as well. But in yesterday's check-in, I weighed in at 85.25 kilos. So still heavier than when I started my last prep. However, I'm definitely leaner at 85 kilos now than I was at 84 kilos 2 years ago. So yeah, I reckon I've probably got less than 10 kilos to come off the frame to be stage ready. So I reckon I've built probably 3.5 to 4.5 kilos of muscle in the last 18 months as a natural trainee in my 11th year of training. So the reason I wanted to put those numbers out there is just to give you a bit of an insight into me, my journey, my process, and just so you know, I'm not one of those guys that's just blabbering without actually getting any results myself. You know, I managed to place second or top 2 in the UK in 2 federations in 2023 when I last was on stage. You know, and I've been putting the work in, I've been grafting over the past 18 months to not only improve that placing, but also improve my physique to the level where hopefully I'm worthy of a natural pro status. But yeah, anyway, we'll see. So enough of the chit chat. Let's get into 3 lessons that you're going to be able to implement in your next bulk that's really, really going to excel and accelerate your results. Lesson number 1 is that you have to force muscle growth. So just because you're eating in a calorie surplus doesn't mean it's going to happen. Just because you're eating more protein doesn't mean it's going to happen. Just because you've progressed a couple lifts per week doesn't mean it's going to happen. Because listen to what I'm saying. If you want to grow and build your physique as well as you physically can, you have to force muscle growth. There's no other way around it. You literally need to train like your life depends on it. Like I'll go in the gym and I'll literally sit there and envision how I want to look the next time I'm on stage. Like if I'm doing a chest press or a pec deck, I'm envisioning how I want my physique to look on stage. I'm envisioning the progression I'm going to make if I fucking nail this exercise and take it to failure. And that's what you have to do. You know, sometimes I'll even sit there between sets, like scrolling through my pictures, you know, just looking at my physique from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, looking at myself on stage, not just from a critical perspective, but also from a perspective of like inspiration as well. Like I know I looked great when I was last on stage, at least I think I did. So, you know, that's inspiring me to keep pushing because I know I'm going to look better next time. And if I just keep training hard and pushing myself to that level, I know I'm going to keep getting better. And you are the same. As long as you're doing all the things you need to do, you know, training, nutrition, sleep properly, recovering properly, as long as you're doing what you need to do, you're going to be the same. So you just have to use yourself as a bit of inspiration sometimes, you know, but also just envision where you can be if you keep pushing yourself to the level that you need to. And another take on that is that some people are going to look back and be really unimpressed with where they were. They don't want to go back. They don't want to regress. I don't want to regress. And sometimes actually the fear of going backwards can be more powerful than the motivation of where you can be in the future. So sometimes looking back and scaring yourself of actually, if I don't train hard enough and I don't push myself hard enough, I'm going to regress. That can be a lot more powerful to push you forwards and progress you and motivate you than actually the goal looking forwards. So in my opinion, if you really want to develop your physique, you must start with pushing your training intensity to the max it can get to. Keep great execution, great technique, great form. Set up for your movements properly, but do not let that take away from training intensity. Your intensity must be literally 9 out of 10 every single set. And by the way, if you go to the first link in the description, there's a link to my free 8-week building program where I go through all of these things: training, nutrition, hydration, recovery, etc. You know, there's 8 coaching videos embedded into that program. If you just download it, it's completely free. You just got to put your email in and I'll email it to you. You know, you can use that program as the program is there, but also watch those coaching videos and take all of that information on board because it will help you to progress. Okay, so lesson number 2 is that your recovery matters more than you think. You might think that getting an extra half an hour to an hour of sleep isn't that important. You might think stretching and mobility work isn't really going to do much for your training. Or you think saunas and cold plunges are for pussies. Or high rocks athletes, which is fair enough, because they are pussies. But no, mate, in reality, I think all of these things are for smart people who want to develop their physique to the best level, kind of. Now, obviously, I don't think a cold plunge is going to totally transform your physique, and I definitely don't think stretching is going to make all that difference to how your physique looks. But if that's what you're thinking, then you're missing the point. Because all of these things can aid your recovery process. And when we're recovering from training, that's where we're growing, right? So I think you need to start with the most impactful, but also the easiest form of recovery, which is your sleep. Most people's sleep is absolutely dog shit, and I imagine yours is probably the same. Drinking caffeine too late, going to bed too late, not getting enough sleep, definitely not getting enough deep sleep, not sleeping for long enough. You know, all of these things are, you know, what 99.9% of the population experience. So if you are able to transform your sleep hygiene and your sleep routine, and I don't mean anything crazy or anything hippie, just some simple tips that I'm going to give you in a second, you know, that's really going to help to level up your recovery, therefore your physique. Because you've got to remember that sleep is going to be the main hub and the main driver for everything you do in a day. Yes, it's going to aid your recovery, but it's also going to aid your mindset, your mood, your body composition, your decision making, your decision fatigue, etc. All of these things are affected massively by your sleep. So if you're able to nail your sleep, you know, you're going to think and feel and look way better. So I definitely think the first thing you need to do is just make sure you're sleeping for at least 7 to 9 hours every single night. So if you're trying to sleep for 7 hours, ideally you need to try and get into bed 8 hours before wake up time. Because by the time you actually, you know, put your phone down and get to sleep, you're probably going to get about 7 hours then. So here's a few tips that I do suggest before bed. So anywhere from half an hour to an hour before bed, have a warm shower. Get out the shower, brush your teeth, and then from the point you brush your teeth, put your phone down and try not to look at any more screens. Go into your room, set some nice dim chilled lighting, and go through 5 to 10 to 15 minutes of stretching, just like a full body stretch, nothing too intense, but holding those stretches for a period of time. And whilst you're doing that stretching, focus on your breath and your breathing, because that's really going to help to just slow your heart rate down, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and hopefully get you feeling a lot more tired before going into bed. And then if you can, finish the stretching routine laying in bed, probably doing like a lower back or a glute stretch where you're pulling your leg across your body. And then by that point, hopefully you're ready to fall asleep. You know, if you can do all of those things and pair that with taking a ZMA, your sleep and your recovery is going to improve massively. And then on top of sleep, you've just got to think about all these other things as little points on top of your recovery. So like I said, sauna, cold plunge, stretching, mobility, massage, foam rolling, self-massage, massage gun, whatever it might be. You know, all of these things are like extra additional points. And now I'm not saying do all of these every single week, but if you can try and factor some of these into your week, then I think that's really going to benefit you and your recovery again. You know, a lot of the time as well with recovery, it's not just about the active recovery, it's also about the inactive recovery. So if you're able to just sit still, chill, do some meditation, you know, just have a low heart rate when you're eating food. All of these things are really going to aid your recovery as well. I know it sounds silly from the outside looking in, but these are all things that I've really worked on over the past, 18 months again, to be fair. And yeah, as I said, I've noticed more gains than ever, and you will too. Like I said, if you focus on your recovery, it's not only going to help you to look better, but also feel better as well. And final lesson number 3, is that if you have shit nutrition, you're going to have a shit physique. Now, as I said, this bulk is the heaviest I'd ever been by more than 6 kilograms, and I still had abs. And I'm not saying that in a bullshit dickhead way, I'm just saying it as a fact, like I was 6 kilos heavier than I'd ever been, and I still managed to maintain my abs. But here's how. Did I eat Domino's once every couple months? Yes. Would I treat myself to a burger every now and then? Yes. Do I love sushi and would I kill for it right now? Absolutely yes. But this is exactly why I still had abs, because I wasn't using my bulk as an opportunity or an excuse to just go and eat shit every week, because I wasn't eating shit every week. If anything, I was the complete opposite. My diet was pretty much what I would eat in prep, with a couple extras obviously throughout the week. But I was eating clean, quality, nutrient-dense whole foods for the majority of my nutrition. Probably for 85 to 95% of my nutrition, it was clean, quality food sources. Like I said, like if I had a cup of tea in the evening, I might have had a couple of biscuits. Or if I was short on calories for the day, when I had my mince and rice meal, I'd probably put a couple of hash browns in there. But, it wasn't because I wanted to eat shit. It was simply just to boost my calories up. And at the end of the day, when you do have a larger calorie allowance, obviously we can factor in a bit of flexibility. Because the important thing when we're going through a build phase is adherence. And if you adhering to the plan for a longer period of time means a little bit of flexibility, or like a 5% leeway of flexibility, then I would say add that flexibility in. If it's going to keep you in the game for longer, then of course go for it. But like I said, for me, in the past 18 months, this was very minimal. I wasn't doing this every day or every night, maybe a bit more towards the end of the build phase as motivation started to dip. However, like I said, 85 to 95% of my nutrition was clean, quality foods, and I recommend you do the same. Something I always say to my clients is that the quality of your nutrition equals the quality of your physique. And I don't think I've ever said truer words. Because just think about it, whatever you eat consistently, obviously that's going to be reflected in your physique. Now, a lot of people that eat a lot of takeaway foods but don't necessarily eat a lot of calories, they still look like shit. They might be lean, but they look watery, they might have like acne, their skin just doesn't look great. It's because the quality of their food is shit. Now, if you're eating in a build phase, so if you're eating in a surplus and you're eating shit quality food, you're just gonna get fat, you're gonna get watery, you're gonna get spotty, you're gonna feel low energy, your libido is probably gonna drop, and all of this is gonna affect your muscle growth and obviously your body composition as well. So it just doesn't make sense. If you eat like a fat cunt, you're going to look like a fat cunt. I think a massive issue these days is like you just see so many adults eating like children, like fucking beige buffets, fucking oven food or freezer food. And it's like, come on, at what point do you grow out of being a freaking child and eating the foods that your mum used to feed you because she had 4 kids to look after and she had a job and she couldn't fucking have time to cook? Why are you still eating like that? You're not a child, mate. Put away the fucking turkey dinosaurs and get a fucking chicken breast and some rice and some seasoning. Pull up a fucking TikTok. You can literally watch cooking tutorials on TikTok that are like a minute long. Like, it's not hard to cook these days. So if you want to have the most muscle building success possible in your next build phase, you must implement these 3 lessons. Take on board what I've said, implement it, and honestly, you will notice more and more gains. You also have to understand that to take your physique to places it's not been before, you have to do things that you've not done before. Whether that's in a cut or a diet phase, or whether that's in a build phase, you have to do things that you haven't done to get to where you've not been. And that can consist of shoveling in meals or foods when you're not hungry, getting to the gym when you're feeling tired or lethargic. And the most important one is staying consistent with those things for as long as you can. Now, most people aren't willing to commit to a muscle building phase for long enough to see the real results. So my question to you is, are you willing to put in the work?